Ha!
Oh my.
Whoops.
Oh no.
Guess the plate slipped. You might want to try ducking next time.
Next time, sir, there's the door and security.
Why is he bowing to her? Wait, what's happening? Whispers rippled through the restaurant as the billionaire's smug grin collapsed into shock. Moments earlier, he had flung food at the black waitress, laughing as it dripped down her uniform. But now the entire room watched the owner of the prestigious Crestview Manor bend his head to her with trembling respect. The billionaire's face drained of color, realizing too late that he hadn't humiliated a server. He'd insulted the one person he should have feared. This is the story of a man who mocked the wrong woman and paid the price. It was supposed to be an ordinary afternoon at the renowned Crestview Manor restaurant. In this place, chandeliers glowed like captured stars, and polished marble floors mirrored the elegance of the city's wealthiest. Among the carefully arranged tables and murmured conversations, Amara moved with calm precision. At just 26, she had already earned a quiet reputation. Kind, unwavering, and effortlessly composed no matter the chaos around her. Most customers only saw her pressed uniform and graceful smile. Few knew she had grown up watching her father build this restaurant from nothing, brick by brick, dream by dream. Fewer still knew that the owner had stepped away months ago to recover from a sudden illness, leaving operations in the hands of managers who respected her, but not enough to tell anyone who she really was. Imara liked it that way. She preferred the anonymity, the freedom, the chance to learn every corner of the business without being judged as the owner's daughter. Her days were predictable, almost rhythmic. She arrived early, brewed the first pot of coffee, ran inventory checks, and greeted the cooks in the back with quiet warmth. She loved the small details, aligning silverware, smoothing linens, ensuring each guest's experience began before they even sat down. It was her sanctuary, a space where she could work without fanfare, blending seamlessly into the flow of customers who came and went, unaware of her lineage. But on this particular afternoon, the air felt different. A heaviness, a shift, she couldn't name it. But she sensed it lingering before she ever stepped onto the dining floor. A new reservation had been made under the name of a billionaire whose reputation preceded him, a man known for ego, arrogance, and the kind of entitlement that made staff uneasy. Still, Amara centered herself and moved gracefully, unaware of how loudly fate was beginning to clear its throat. She didn't know that within the next hour, her quiet world inside Crestview Manor would shatter. She didn't know that someone was about to test her, dignity in a way she had never imagined, and she certainly didn't know that her response would silence an entire room. The trouble began long before anyone realized it. The billionaire arrived with an entourage that moved like a storm, loud, restless, and dripping with entitlement. His presence instantly shifted the energy of the restaurant. Conversation softened, eyes lifted. Even the managers straightened their posture, scrambling to impress him despite the unease flickering in their expressions. Amara noticed it all but continued her work, steady and unbothered. She reminded herself that customers were customers, no matter how large their bank accounts or their egos. But as she approached his table, carrying herself with the same quiet confidence she offered everyone, the air thickened. He never looked at her. Not at first. His eyes were on his phone, his laughter booming through the dining room as he bragged about some hostile takeover he'd orchestrated earlier that morning. When Amara greeted the table with her usual warmth, he paused only long enough to give her a dismissive glance. A glance that lingered, assessing, belittling, amused. She recognized that look. Every black woman in a service position did. Still, she kept her composure. She took their drink orders, memorizing each request so she wouldn't need to return with a pen or pad. When she walked away, she heard the billionaire murmur something to his guests, something low, something condescending. Their laughter followed. She ignored it. She had mastered that art long ago, but the tension grew with each interaction. He snapped his fingers when he wanted a refill. He waved his hand inches from her face as if swatting at something insignificant. When she set down the appetizers, he commented loudly on her appearance, as though she weren't right there, as though she were furniture rather than a breathing human being. Still, Amara remained unshaken. She had promised herself long ago that no one would steal her grace. Yet his cruelty escalated. It happened when the main course arrived. The billionaire took one bite, exaggerated a grimace, and without warning, scooped a spoonful of food and flung it toward her. The plate clattered. The sauce splattered across her uniform, warm and humiliating. A collective gasp rippled through the restaurant. Guests froze mid-conversation. Silverware stilled. A moment of stunned silence swallowed the room. The billionaire laughed, not a small, uncomfortable laugh, the kind that slips out when someone makes a mistake, but a loud, mocking laugh. A laugh meant to diminish her. A laugh meant to remind everyone that he believed he could. Amara stood still. She didn't touch the stain spreading across her clothes. She didn't look down. She refused. Instead, she lifted her eyes and met his entirely for the first time. Around her, whispers erupted. Is she going to cry? Will she snap? Will she walk out? But she did none of those things. Instead, she turned calmly, walked toward the back hallway, and reached for her phone. Her hands didn't shake. Her voice didn't waver. She made a single call, a number she rarely used but always kept close. And within minutes, everything would change. Out in the dining room, the billionaire continued laughing, unaware that the man who owned everything around him was already on his way. In that he wasn't coming for him. He was coming for her. The restaurant doors burst open with such force that every guest was startled. The sudden rush of air rustled napkins and sent a hush rippling across the room. The billionaire's laughter halted mid-breath as all eyes shifted toward the entrance. There, moving with urgency and barely contained fury, was the one man no one expected to see. Crestview Manor's owner, the legendary Jonathan Hale. He didn't pause to greet the staff or survey the room. His eyes locked instantly on Amara, still standing tall despite the stain soaking through her uniform. Something in his expression, fear, rage, heartbreak, said he already understood everything. He crossed the room faster than anyone thought possible, stopping before her with a reverence that silenced even the whispers. And then, to the shock of every witness, he bowed his head to her. Not out of apology for the incident, not out of guilt for not being there sooner, but out of respect for his daughter. The billionaire's confusion twisted into panic. His gaze darted between Amara and the owner as realization dawned with horrifying clarity. He had mocked her, humiliated her, assaulted her, and now he stood face to face with the man whose empire he had just offended in the worst possible way. The room felt suspended, as if gravity itself hesitated. The guests watched, breathless, sensing that the story was no longer about spilled food or rude behavior. It was about power, real power, and who truly held it. Jonathan finally turned toward the billionaire, stepping forward with a cold, steady calm. And in that terrifying stillness, the billionaire understood. This was the moment his world would crash. What followed happened without a single raised voice. Jonathan didn't need volume to command the room. His presence alone reshaped the air. With quiet authority, he informed the billionaire and his entourage that their meal was over, their behavior permanently banned from Crestview Manor, and that legal action would begin before nightfall. There was no shouting, no spectacle, just a man protecting what truly mattered. The billionaire tried to speak, but the words tangled in his throat. His confidence, so loud moments earlier, dissolved into embarrassment as dozens of eyes watched him stumble toward the exit. His wealth meant nothing now. Influence couldn't shield him, and every person in that restaurant knew it. When the doors closed behind him, the tension broke. Staff members exhaled. Guests exchanged looks of disbelief. But Amara stood still, not triumphant, not shaken, simply grounded in her truth. Her father placed a hand on her shoulder, pride softening his expression. He told her, in a voice only she could hear, that he had always trusted her strength, but wished the world didn't require her to prove it. In the hours that followed, the restaurant buzzed with a different kind of energy, one of respect, unity, and a shared recognition of what had taken place. It wasn't just an incident. It was a mirror held up to the deep, persistent wounds of racism that still cut through daily life. Amara didn't ask for attention. She didn't need applause. But her silence had spoken louder than any confrontation could. And as she returned to her work, customers treated her not as a waitress, not as an heiress, but as a woman who refused to let cruelty define her. The question lingered long after the night ended. How many more moments like this must the world witness before dignity is given without being demanded?